Hello, Charlie. Thank you very much for coming and doing this.
No problem.
So, for those out there who might not know about Cantifix, would you like to give them a little introduction to the business?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I set it up, my brother and I, blimey, 33 years ago.
33 years.
And we build specialist sort of structures out of glass. So it's a pretty niche industry. It was a lot more niche because we actually pioneered the whole thing back in 1991. And we probably had 15 wonderful years with no competitors, but there are a few more of them out there now.
There's an awful lot now, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
It's a very competitive market.
Yeah, I always put competitors in inverted commas.
After 33 years, what keeps you coming back and doing it and doing it and doing it?
Well, there's obviously an interest in running a business. That's always fascinating. The people that work for you, that's always interesting. But I think fundamentally, I think everyone at Cantifix does it because we build amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And we're proud of it, and it sort of changes the architecture.
Yeah, even for me, I think even for people who say they might not be interested in the industry, I think you can't show people these projects and they're not captured even just for a couple of seconds. I think everyone is automatically they connect to the aesthetic. Because everyone lives in a house.
Yeah. And of course, we don't just do houses; we do a few iconic buildings as well. So it's nice to think that over 33 years, I've slightly transformed London.
Of the current projects, what's the most exciting you think you guys are doing?
Well, I suppose from a recognition of Cantifix, we're working at Battersea Power Station, doing 67 of our unique products on the roof for the penthouses. They've come to us because we're the only people who can actually deliver a particular product like this. And I suppose that's a recognition of all the hard work we put in over the years.
And because it's like I have other clients down there, like Battersea Power Station is a beast of a project, isn't it? Do you and how long have you been on it?
Well, about a year now.
And is it 67 products?
67, moving roof lights.
That's insane.
And the experience of working for Mace, of course, has been interesting. I mean, big contractors, they're different from working for your homeowner.
And historically, what's one of the projects that you will always look back on and sort of think, that's Cantifix product?
Well, if I'm looking right back, the very first project we did in 1991, where in my mind, the story in my mind is that we were called, William and I, late at night, I don't know, I'm sure it wasn't late at night, to a meeting and just asked if we'd like to stick two bits of glass together.
Was this Eva
Juritner?
Yeah.
And that one sort of, it changed the business, so therefore inevitably changed my life. And it got a massive amount of publicity. As I say, it was the pioneering building of the age.
Because I think, from people inside the industry who do know about Cantifix, you guys are the glass guys and the structural glazing guys, but it was never, as you say, this was never the path you almost designed. It was the path that happened, really.
Yeah, isn't that what happens in business?
Yeah, I guess so. Of all the processes that it involving, you meet the clients, you start preparing drawings and tenders, then we get to site, survey to install. What has changed the most in those 33 years, do you think?
I think actually it's probably the sophistication of the client. And you've got to hand it to programs like Grand Design, whatever you think about them. People they watch it and they have aspirations
and expectations.
And expectations, So when someone tells them, "Oh, that's much too big," they go, "No, I saw it last week on Grand Designs." So I think that's done a lot, and I think more and more people are sort of interested in realising their own dreams. It always used to be architects used to describe their work as realising dreams, but I think now people think, well, actually, I could do this. And they make a horrendous mess.
Do you think it helps being in London due to the fact that space is already at such a premium, and that idea where it's renovation rather than moving, and do you think that plays a large role?
Yeah, there's no doubt that what we do is not inexpensive. Therefore, the house price is absolutely key to it. And it used to be that London M25 was about the only place that could afford it. The house prices could afford what we do, but that's gone out now to Cornwall, Somerset, areas of Bristol, Cambridge, Oxford, Cheshire. So the actual market has got bigger, but yeah, entirely dependent on house prices.
Well, I also know that, like when I worked here, always the reason we concentrate.
Did you work here, David?
I'm afraid I did. The reason, and we all have fond memories.
Yep.
Do you feel that now that the further afield you go, you're like, the one thing that was always great about being so central was that you always could be on site within minutes if something was going wrong. Do you find that now you have is it the same when you're going as far as Cornwall? Is it the same when it's as far as Bristol?
Yeah, you have to build in that level of risk. But as you know, when you worked here, very little goes wrong. Or maybe it just doesn't go wrong now you've left.
Can't be. That can't be it. Also, well, you speak about going further. I know you guys have been in Kuwait and Qatar recently as well. So what's from my experience with regards to the candidate database and those sort of the candidate pool, I know that like places like the Middle East and even like Australasia, there's an awful lot of skill and there's an awful lot of innovation because they're not subject to the same restrictions as we are over here. What was your experience when you were there?
Yeah, certainly with innovation. I mean, it's mind-boggling sort of buildings that they're putting up and the ideas they have. I'm not sure I agree with you about skill because the problem is they lack expertise.
Okay.
They've got a pot they can draw from global experts and it's very exciting. I guess my deep down conclusion to Dubai and Qatar, and I'm still very interested in it, we've still got lots of projects sitting there waiting to go. It's very difficult to understand what is just dream world and what actually is going to turn into reality. I
guess because they don't really suffer the problem of that's too expensive. I guess is there an assumption there that, well, we can pay for it regardless of the scale of this engineering feat?
Well, and regardless of whether they really can pay for it, so everyone's arrived there with this sort of vision that money's no object, no restrictions on planning or anything like that. But actually there are so many people dealing in so many different schemes. And with their big Expo 2020 coming, and I keep telling them this, you're going to run out of experts, There are only a certain number of specialist glazing companies in the world. Yeah. And they're sort of, they're building 15 Wembley-sized pavilions,
That's a big undertaking, isn't it?
Yeah.
With regards to I see in the little bit of research that I do, I think with regards to the new technologies that are coming and real big innovations that I think will really affect what we do is mainly going to hit fabrication and installation with robots and AI. I'm not sure if you've seen it, the spider cranes that normally lift panels. You virtually have standing up versions of there that are installing panels now. How far does that reach, do you think? Where does the automation stop? Where do you think we will always want to have? I think obviously design will always be something we'll want. Sales will always be something we want that human touch. But do you think AI and automation is going to change the industry in a massive way, or will it be?
Well, I think it'll change the construction industry in a massive way. And as you say, what we do is actually quite niche. And if you go to our factory over there, it's not like there's not hundreds of people cutting metal and lots of noisy stuff. Actually, it's lots of experts bending over tables, fiddling with little bits of electronic. Eventually that work could be done by a robot, but actually we're quite a long way off that.
Yeah, do you think it's because of the bespoke nature of each and every project means that you can't really, you can't algorithm your way out of that?
Yeah, and also we sort of R&D on the hoof. And what we do here is we respond, we're solution driven. The client comes to us with a particular, something he wants solved, and we will work out where to solve it. So most of the work we're doing, or a lot of the work we're doing, is first time only.
Yeah.
So it'd be very difficult to write an algorithm, try and teach a robot to do that.
On the candidate side, what is the personality of the candidates that you guys look for? What's one of the biggest traits that would be a marker for a successful Cantifix candidate?
I mean, you've worked here. We're not a very formal company in that sense. We're all very friendly, and we try and work as one massive great team. Well, teams need a variety of different people. You need all sorts of personalities. One thing you don't want is someone who's not very team orientated.
I think this is the first place I ever worked where I had just such a great example. Like, yeah, even working with you, like, I've never heard you raise your voice. I've worked in plenty of places prior to that, construction and not construction, where it's almost, you know, depending on how, not volatile, but depending how important the project is or how close we are completion, usually those voices get raised and raised and raised. And now that now that I'm doing recruitment, it's so important. I think we have so much more understanding about how to treat people and those, because we know that people don't leave bad companies, they leave bad bosses. I know that you have still people here who have been 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Do you think that is ultimately the key? It's that we are a team and no one is more important than the other.
Yeah, I think that's got a lot to do with it. I think we change a lot. Okay, I've been in the same job for 33 years, but realistically it's not the same job that I was doing on day one, and it's probably not the same job as I was doing last week. And I think those who have been with us a long time, it's because we're constantly transforming it. But the team ethic is completely vital. You can waste so much time when teammates or people working in a company don't get on with each other. And you'll know better than I do, you see far more companies, but any company is a reflection of their bosses.
100%, yeah.
And if they're shouting and screaming and unpleasant, I'm afraid they have shouting and screaming and unpleasant workforce.
Well, it just doesn't work.
It just doesn't work.
You can't get...
Got to be happy after all.
Exactly. And as you know, these projects sometimes require people to go above and beyond. You have to put in those extra hours.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a harmonious team, why would someone feel like they can commit to that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Quite. Yeah, when I have any one thing, if we come across an issue or a problem, you know, how would you feel if this was your house, and how would you feel it should be solved? You know, now there are a lot of companies that say, "Let me have a look at my financial statement." No, I'm afraid I can't afford to spend any more time on this. You know, we're building long-term relationships with our clients, and we expect that when they call us in 15 years saying they've lost the key to the door, we'll respond.
Yeah.
And they won't be. We won't have forgotten about them, and they won't have forgotten about us.
That's another great thing I think that I realised when I was working here, the effect that these projects can have on the communities that they're also put in. So, for example, you know, you might start a project on one end of the street, and 15 years later, you might have 5 or 6 projects on there.
Yeah.
Do you think is that just because people connect to these projects and how we live our lives, and how much do you think these projects affect people and their lives?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have something done on your house if you don't want to live in it. I mean, they're not doing it just to keep up with the neighbours. And I guess the reason why you end up doing plenty of jobs down one road is you go and ask your neighbour who did the job for you. And I always reckon there's a sort of Waitrose effect here, isn't there? You know, you don't have a Tesco's delivery if your neighbour has Waitrose delivery. Yeah. So they tend to stick with Cantifix, but it's sort of easier that way. And quite often you're building something pretty similar to that you bought for a neighbour. But as I say, I mean, these people, it's a lifestyle job we do. You know, they haven't built a glass box on their kitchen because they think the glass box looks nice. It's because it changes the way they live, improves the way they live, and it's somewhere for the family to sit and really enjoy being outside. And
again, something I wouldn't have known until I worked here and in the industry, that like by allowing more light into a building, you affect people on a metaphysical level. Like that's a pretty valiant and righteous thing to do. Although it can be seen under the guise of, you know, selling these expensive projects. I think that's sometimes something that gets lost in the communication. It's actually that this stuff improves people's lives.
My pet subject, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, metaphysical and biological and physiological and all the rest of it. Yeah, I mean, we all know that we feel better when the sun's out.
Yeah.
We feel better when we can see nature outside. It's no great mystery, but I mean, there are very good neurological reasons why that's the case, and I won't go into it now, obviously. But yeah, of course, it's lifestyle and health and all the rest of it.
And then do you think, though, because as someone who now is in charge of speaking to that next generation of installer, fabricator, designers, etc. And I think another thing that sometimes gets lost is that the green principles behind aluminium and glass, etc. They're so strong, they're so marketable, but that's something that the industry doesn't do well enough too engaged with the next generation of installers, glazers, fabricators. I think it's something that maybe we could be doing better, and we should be doing better, as we could always do with more skill.
I think you're right. I mean, most people build, the sense people build things thinking, oh, don't you know where I'll be taking my kitchen out in 5 years and putting a new one in. I mean, you're absolutely right. The sustainability nature of both aluminium and glass is actually, they last for virtually ever. And so yeah, if people were thinking, I'm going to build this and I'm going to stay in this house and I'm going to pass it on to my great-grandchildren, you know what, it'll still be there. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily how people do live these days.
Yeah. And over your 30-odd years, with regards to your recruitment, what has your experience been? Obviously before.
Before. Our experience has not been great, and I dare say this is maxed by many other companies. You know, you have candidates, it's been recommended to you by a particular recruiter, and when they turn up here, they've never even met the recruiter. What we use recruiters for, and this is why we virtually exclusively use you now, David, is that you understand what we want, and you don't waste our time by sending us people, quite frankly, who aren't suitable, you know.
I think, again, because of the special, I think the personality really matters in this industry, and we also know that even across the skill sets, personality really matters, and it's just, I think the recruitment it's too competitive for it to raise its head above the parapet to try and build those relationships, because it's viewed through the prism of the sale.
Yeah, a numbers game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I don't think, though, that's by like a malicious intent. I just think that's unfortunately the competitive nature of that industry. But I think that ultimately there has to be, personality has to matter, and you have to know that you're not wasting your client's time. Yeah.
I mean, no one you employ is going to be much value to you for the first 3 months. Probably not a great deal of value to you for the next 3 months after that as well. You put a lot of time and effort into it. If they turn out not to be the right person, or in fact, you know, they're constantly looking for something else, well, it's just a waste of everyone's time then.
I think I've been lucky in regards to when I worked here. I almost liken it to the Beckham, Giggs, Scholes. We had a sort of golden generation that have now, they're all going on and working in different places, and actually there's still a lot of connective tissue between like Cantifix as a company and a lot of the other competitors. I think that's a thing that really makes a difference, because we can now, we almost, within 2 or 3 calls, you can get a good reference on someone from someone you really trust and know.
And
I guess that speaks to, though, the prominence of Cantifix when they started 30 years ago. You really almost set the precedent for the industry.
Yeah, and it's nice to know that actually all these people who've now gone to work elsewhere quite often come back for drinks and things, so none of them have left under a shadow.
Oh, good. No, but you build, it's a family-run business with a family attitude, with a team ethic, and I think that, again, because construction is, and especially with people's homes, if it goes slightly wrong, projects can become really heated, and those exchanges between from design to sales and to install, those teams can, unless they're harmonious, can be really hard to work, and I think people really connect to that. And as long as the message has to be consistent as well. I think I've been really lucky from working here, in so much that I've been educated here, we've gone on to do different things, and including those people I worked with who are now working for competitors or starting their own companies, that we only have to make 1 or 2 calls and we can get really good references on particularly new candidates. I think it speaks to the sort of harmony that we were speaking about that you create here at Cantifix, and especially when you buttress that against the sort of how difficult some of these projects are to complete when you're dealing with people's homes. Well, I'm glad we've been useful to you. Thank you very much. And would I also like to say thank you very much for your time today, Charlie, and look forward to speaking to you again.
No problem at all. Cheers, David.